Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. Listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location at Cards Against Humanity in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is
Rye the Movie Guy, and sitting behind the glass is producer Pat.
Hey guys, how's it going?
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, once again, our top 5 list is secret.
Indeed. Hidden,
right?
Yes.
But we made this top 5 list with love, Matt, as we cover our top 5 favorite secret love affairs in movies.
Did that cheesy song from the 80s, Secret Lovers, just keep going through your mind?
Not at all.
Really?
Not at all.
Just me, huh?
Yeah, I don't even know if I know that song.
You don't know that song? Maybe Pat can find a second or two to edit in while we're talking about that.
Do not know it, but we are covering our top 5 favorite love affairs, secret love affairs in film, and that's a rich topic.
It is, yeah. It's definitely the stuff that makes for good drama and comedy and all kinds of good storytelling.
It does, and we're doing this because we have a great guest who's going to be joining us very shortly via Skype.
Yes, indeed. Madeleine Olnek, who you guys might remember I talked to a while back on a Jaw bonus bite, is sitting in for her first entire episode of Cinemajaw.
Right, and she is the director and writer of a movie entitled Wild Nights with Emily, in which Emily Dickinson has a secret love affair.
Indeed. And can't wait to talk to her because it's factual.
It is.
Yeah.
The film stars Molly Shannon. It's available on digital everywhere you rent your movies. So we will be very excited to talk to Madeleine.
Yeah, indeed.
Besides that, we do have more going on. Do we not, Pat?
Yeah, we do, Rye. In honor of the Call of the Wild, we are playing Harrison Ford castmate trivia.
And we have a review of Netflix's Horse Girl.
Plus, because we're playing Harrison Ford movie trivia and The Call of the Wild, I did get out and see that, Matt. I got a jaw bite-sized review of that film.
Okay.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on The Call of the Wild.
A doggy biscuit size?
Doggy biscuit size review of The Call of the Wild.
Perfect.
Let us not forget, we are celebrating Anne Hathaway this month. So let's start there with an Anne Hathaway fact.
Our Anne Hathaway fact this week. In 2013, Anne Hathaway won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for Les Mis, though she only appeared in a fraction of the film's 158-minute running time. In fact, she is only seen on screen for 15 minutes. Hathaway truly committed to the role, losing 25 pounds and cutting off all her hair to play the doomed Fantine. Her shining moment came with her show-stopping rendition of I Dreamed a Dream.
I remember seeing this movie.
I still have never seen it. No, and I never saw the stage play either.
I saw the stage play here in Chicago, and the performance I saw, the production value, brilliant. It was absolutely awesome. I was not going to the press screenings at that time, so this was out in theaters, and there was already a lot of buzz about her performance. And I a lot of times hate that going into a movie where I'm waiting for the big moment.
Expectations are running too high, yeah.
Did not disappoint, though. That was one of those where I walked in and I remember thinking, oh, yeah, okay, I know what everybody's talking about.
Well, I mean, hey, obviously she was given some accolades for that performance.
Indeed. Oscar winner for sure. All right, Matt, we ready to get this show on the road?
I am.
Let's do it. Without further ado, we bring in our guest. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Madeleine Olnek has written and directed the film Wild Nights with Emily. Madeleine, welcome to Cinemajaw.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Where are you calling in from, Madeleine?
I'm calling in from New York City.
Nice. I'm actually from the East Coast. I saw in your bio you were raised in Connecticut, right? What part?
I was. Stamford and Greenwich.
Okay. Yeah, I'm from the Danbury area.
Okay. So we probably grew up eating the same saltwater taffy or something.
Oh, yeah. Down in Mystic Seaport, for sure. Your film, Wild Nights with Emily, has made it onto the streaming platform. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the journey that the film's been on, and also give us sort of the elevator pitch. Maybe start there with what's it about, because some people may not have heard my previous interview with you.
Okay. Well, the movie, it was about the real life of Emily Dickinson, which is really the opposite of anything you've heard, and how her life was revised, how she was made into basically one of the only women poets in the canon of here are the great writers of all time. This sounds a little convoluted, but basically I grew up thinking Emily Dickinson was a creep, you know, like she was miserable. She didn't leave her room. She pined away for someone who didn't love her. She didn't want to be published. She would write these poems and just hide them away. Like everything I heard about her made me not want to read her poetry. And then when I found out later on, like not only had she had this long relationship with another woman, everything else was just the opposite. Like she was funny, she was engaged, she had friendships, like all of those things we hear are all not true. So I was really curious as to why and how her life was revised. Why can't we just have the truth now?
Right.
Both, I was looking at just her actual life and how she became able to occupy that perch of one of the few women whose work is celebrated in the literary canon. So.
And as we're talking about this, it dawns on me that listeners may think that this film is a drama because we've been very serious in the interview, but it's quite funny. It's a comedy as well.
Yeah, and one of the things I discovered about Emily Dickinson was that she herself had a great sense of humor and was very funny. And I thought, oh, that's one more thing we were not told. That's one more thing that was revised about her. She was supposed to be like this morbid, creepy person. Bringing her warmth to the screen was very important to me. And that's why it was so important to me to cast Molly Shannon. And I knew just from her playing that role, people would already understand so much more about Emily Dickinson.
You actually went to college with Molly Shannon?
Yes, I did. And I directed her in comedy shows, including I directed her in a comedy show where she first developed her character of Mary Catherine Gallagher. So,
Superstar.
Yeah. So it was a great moment. That show was incredible. It was at NYU. There were like lines around the block to see her, and it was really great.
Was this the first time then that you reunited with her and worked with her again since college?
Yeah, it was. She came to see my movie, The Foxy Merkins, at Sundance because she was there with the Aubrey Plaza zombie movie, which I'm blanking on the name of. And she was really funny in that movie. But she came to see my movie, and she was like, Madeleine, we really have to work together again. And, of course, I've always wanted to work with her again, but I never quite had anything I felt comfortable offering her because I felt like it needed to be of a certain magnitude.
Sure. Yeah.
This was the first role I really felt like this would be, I'm not saying like all the roles in my movies don't have any magnitude. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying something for her to do the things you have to do with the kind of movies I make and put your entire life on hold and, sit on a bed with like 8 other actors because there's no dressing room and all that stuff we do in this, alternative cinema. I wanted to make it like a really great part.
That's fantastic. And Life After Beth, I believe, is the film that you were thinking of, that zombie movie. But
and Molly's so funny in that. She's so funny.
Yeah, she absolutely. It's John C. Reilly also. It's a great cast. So
John C. Reilly came to see the Foxy Merkins too.
Nice. I mean, that must have been such a treat to look out in the audience.
Fun.
That's amazing.
Really awesome.
Now, Wild Nights with Emily is hitting all the streaming platforms. So I just wanted to get your 5 cents on that. Like, how's that been going?
Well, it's great because so many people have wanted to see it who were like, I've been waiting, There's still these crazy discussions on Facebook posts on the trailer where people are like, oh, now they're trying to rewrite the past, all kinds of crazy stuff. And you realize how virulent people still are, especially about a woman who was, in some people's mind, this timid, scared woman. It's hard for people to give that up.
Yeah.
Because there's some version of that people wish all women were like that. Do you know what I mean?
It's because of the lingering specter of misogyny, which unfortunately is still prevalent even in the film industry, unfortunately.
Right.
But if anybody has any doubts, one of the sort of feathers in your cap here is the research grant from Harvard University, and you guys did spectrographic analysis on some of Emily Dickinson's letters, finding hidden signatures and names that she had addressed these letters to. So, if anybody has any doubts about the veracity of the film's realigning of the proper history, they should just check out some of that stuff.
Right. Well, actually, I'm glad you bring that up because I think on that Wikipedia page, there's a lot of misinformation. The grant we got was from the Guggenheim.
Right.
Someone else told me it said Harvard.
It does.
And the other thing was that when we put together our press packet, we just had pages and pages of these letters because I was like, look, I know people are going to say I'm making this up. So I had to put it together almost like it was a legal document. And those letters have just been sitting out there for years.
Unpublished.
Well, they were unpublished at a certain point, and then in 1999, Open Me Carefully was published. But even Open Me Carefully, which is this collection of letters from Emily to Susan, the publisher wouldn't let them put all the letters in because the book was going to be too big if it included all of them. It is a big book, and there's enough to see, like, wow, this is like they just loved each other so much. It was so clear.
An epic love story.
But these other, it really is. In terms of the journey, when we first premiered at South by Southwest in 2018, there was basically nothing on the internet that anyone could find about Emily and Susan. And when it was acquired for distribution, even the distributor said, Madeleine, I showed this movie to an older lesbian couple I'm friends with, and neither of them had ever heard of it. I went to the internet to try to find something to show about them, but they hadn't heard of Emily and Susan. I couldn't find anything. So there wasn't even anything you could find about it. Since we were the first people, we kind of took there were a lot of sort of angry responses to this movie, which is weird because it's a comedy and it's, you know what I mean? Like it's not, I don't think it.
Comedies can still be an achievement in storytelling. And I'd say congratulations on casting a light in this, what would have been lost part of one of the greatest American poets. Well done, Madeleine.
Thank you.
And I'm just so happy that we live in a world that Molly Shannon played Emily Dickinson. It just makes me happy.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, she did say, she was like, Madeleine, I could never get cast in a part like this in Hollywood. She was like, that's why I did an independent film. You can't get a part like this. It's no one's asking me to play Emily Dickinson in Hollywood. So it's their loss because I think she's really wonderful.
Yeah,
agreed.
In this movie.
Well, we encourage all our listeners, our jawheads, to check out Wild Nights with Emily. It is streaming everywhere you can rent movies. I saw it there on Vudu, Apple TV, Amazon, all the good places.
Everywhere, yeah.
So type it in, Wild Nights with Emily, give it a rent, and then let us know what you thought. Write us feedback at cinemajaw.com, and we'll pass those notes along to Madeleine.
Except don't pass along the angry notes. I already read enough of them, okay?
Sure.
We'll keep those to ourselves.
Window those out, yeah. We are celebrating Anne Hathaway month, so I'm putting you on the spot here. Do you have a favorite Anne Hathaway performance?
I would like to tell my favorite Anne Hathaway story.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Do tell.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is not a personal encounter. This is something she talks about in this interview once that I really loved. Her brother is gay.
Okay.
And their family, I believe, was Catholic. When her brother came out as gay, her whole family quit the church in solidarity with him. Now, This was back, I can't even remember when, I think in the 1990s at some point. And that's not the typical story that would happen. Usually it would be a family struggles with their faith, and they just, but like a family, like, yes, this is horrible that this church is telling us that you're worthless. We love you, and we're all going to quit in solidarity. And I just thought that was a great story.
That is a great story. I did not know
and
that.
I really appreciated her telling it too, as someone who was like a major star when she was telling that story.
Sure.
People bear in mind things like, oh, you don't want to ostracize yourself from the Catholic audience. Like so many people, like that audience goes to Princess Diaries and all those kinds of things. You know what I mean? Like,
I do. Yeah, she had the courage to speak up. Right.
Yeah.
Because she has a big voice, no doubt about it. That's a good one.
Yeah, we needed a good Anne Hathaway story to, close out Anne Hathaway month.
To cap it off, Ryan.
Love it. Indeed. All right, Matt. So Madeleine is sitting in on this entire Josh. She has her top 5 secret love affairs in movies picked out. Mm-hmm. But before we get there, there is a movie that we wanted to discuss.
All right, let's do it.
As you know, Matt, and as our listeners know, I am a sucker for a good horse movie.
A little weird.
So I was thrilled when we selected Netflix's Horse Girl as our review this week. With that title, I suspected it might be a new Marvel movie in which a girl gets the power to turn into a horse. I was wrong. Damn you, Ant-Man. The truth is, Horse Girl is a quiet, quirky film that examines mental illness. Matt and I settled in on our couches and gave this Netflix indie a spin.
And what is it that you're experiencing?
Been having a little trouble sleeping. Finding myself places and I don't know how I got there.
You have nothing to be afraid of.
Do you believe in alien abductions? People always said that my grandma was so crazy. Now I think that she wasn't crazy at all because I'm feeling it.
Sarah, do you know what happened to the wall?
Alison Brie, best known to me from the TV show Mad Men, plays Sarah, a young girl who we can tell is a shy and perhaps a little different. She works at a craft store, does Zumba, and lives with a roommate. This roommate, Nikki, decides to have her boyfriend bring his friend over to meet Sarah. His name is Darren, and Darren and Sarah hit it off and a small romance is hatched. I thought this is where the movie was going to go, but I was wrong. Insights into Sarah's past, such as visiting her mother's grave and constantly going to a horse stable to visit a horse she is familiar with, give way to a deeper and sadder tale of mental illness. Matt, did you like the direction Horse Girl went?
Yeah, quite a bit. Writer-director Jeff Baena, who also directed Life After Beth, a great zombie movie with John C. Reilly and Molly Shannon, is able to take his time and visually explore a psyche as its grip on reality crumbles around it. I think that films like this are proving that platforms like Netflix are good for storytelling. Let's discuss that in a bit. Baena is able to take his time with the character of Sarah and giving us, the viewers, more connection and more empathy to her and her sad decline. The acting here is wonderful, resting squarely on the shoulders of the lead, Alison Brie. But the cameos from Molly Shannon and Paul Reiser help to build the world around Sarah very convincingly. What's most interesting is how the film treats mental illness. While I think most will conclude that there is no ambiguity to the story, I think that there is some intentionally fuzzy edges of what is and isn't real. Sarah is the classic unreliable narrator, and her experiences that we are shown do leave the possibility that there's more 12 Monkeys and less Girl Interrupted. I liked that sci-fi bend. Whatever you decide Sarah is going through, we feel sadness for her nonetheless. This is a touching, quirky, interesting, and moving film. Ryan, do you think we get a great film like this without the venue of Netflix to champion it?
Well, I think the question you're asking there is better suited as this. This played at Sundance. So yes, I think the movie would exist, but I do not think many people would see it without Netflix. So that is where I still will champion the streaming services compared to you can only see this in a movie theater, right? This is probably, you go back 15 years ago, this is a small movie that plays at Sundance, gets some art house, and then it's hard to find unless people are talking about it on a podcast like this, and then they got to seek it out somehow.
Right.
Now we're living in an age where it's streaming in every household
And that's
if you
a good
want
thing.
it to. And it is. It's a great thing because people want, alternative and indie picks like this. Check out something a little bit different. As far as what you were hinting on, that this does have possibly a sci-fi element, that's a stretch.
I don't think it's a stretch.
I think it's a stretch.
Listen, I want to be clear here. I think that we're shown her delusions as she is getting more and more detached from what is real.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it was intentionally delivered to us by the filmmakers as having a whiff of possibility in it. Maybe if just to illustrate how powerful these delusions can be to the mentally ill.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what they were going for.
But if you wanted to, and I'm actually surprised because you always like to find alternative meanings in films. If you wanted to, you can make a case like, is she a time traveler? Or, was she abducted by aliens, or all these things that she believes has happened?
Well, I think that the film does a good job of grounding us in a reality that everything takes place in. So we're not, as viewers, thinking that this is going to turn into some sci-fi story. And that when we do start to see these delusions start to appear, if anything, for me, I started to feel the sadness that she can't control this. And it's so heartbreaking that she believes all of this, because that's giving us the insight of how difficult and just crazy mental illness is. Crazy, no pun intended. But it's just, how do you deal with it, and how do you tackle this issue and get through to someone when they're having these complete breakdowns and these visions and delusions? And it's so sad.
Yeah, it really is. It's a touching movie. It is sad.
Some of the highlights I liked were these visions that she has. Let's start there. Were sort of subtle, right? So there's
At least at first.
At first, and I love that touch, because usually when a character in a movie has a vision, it's a plane crash and they're going down, or it's something very dramatic. Here, she has a vision of a girl constantly laying next to her. And I thought that was one of the sadder revelations of why she would be having that vision. You can start to draw the conclusion later when she is in a certain room and you see this person, actually laying next to her, where it all makes sense, and how sad that is, that she's probably having these visions and not knowing who that person is.
She's lost track of time, and her timelines are all a little mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was kind of heartbreaking, but I like that the visions were subtle and got a little bit bigger and grander as we went on.
Okay, I have two questions. Well, one's a question, one's a sort of a fact, or did you notice? Did you notice that almost every time her loss of time, or when I say time traveling, I don't mean it in the classic sense like a DeLorean. I mean like time traveling in one's own life where you lose track of time. That every time that happened, she was triggered by some sort of water or drain. Did you pick up on that?
I didn't.
Every time it happens, like the most shocking instance is when she goes to take a shower and then later turns up somewhere else. Let's just say, I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
And she's watching the water go down the drain. The first time we see the character have this is she gets stopped at a traffic light and she's looking at water tanks. And they make very clear later in the movie to call them water tanks. They even draw attention to that. And then that there's water running. Every time that happens.
That's interesting that you say that, because
she finds a character that was important to her in a moment of vulnerability, let's say, and the shower is running, and that could be a big trigger for her. Did you pick up on that?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because then you have to think about her past and what happened to her mom.
Right.
And did that happen in a way where water was involved, and that becomes then a trigger for her to think about and lose track of time?
My other question, yes, I think that's
interesting.
My other question was, what the hell? Okay, this is unsatisfying about the movie. They do not really explain the horse, and I don't want to get into spoiler territory here, but I found that a little unsatisfying. She has a friend who she goes to visit who's clearly somebody who has been injured to the point of having a disability, and we are led to believe that maybe has something to do with the horse, because
100%.
Right. She asks about the horse, but they never completely make that clear. And they never completely...
There's a flashback of her as a young girl with that friend, where they more or less allude that there was some type of horse accident. Yeah.
But we never, I guess that was left a little too ambiguous for me. And the relationship with the horse and the trainers and where the horse lives, like that all just didn't make sense. And the movie's called Horse Girl. I thought that would have been explained a little better.
Yeah, I thought that was maybe where, something had taken place having to do with her mom, but I don't think so as much. It really had to do with the friend that she does go and see. And yeah, I'm a horse fan, so I would have loved if she did turn into a horse. It would have been awesome, but didn't happen in this one.
No.
I liked Darren, who makes this connection with her, and I was a little upset. In a way, I was glad that the movie didn't follow that storyline, because I think that would have been predictable. But I liked him as a character as well, and the way they sort of connected.
Yeah,
it was nice. It was touching.
It was sweet. It was touching, and then sad at the same time.
My downfall on Horse Girl is we don't get enough answers to, or maybe the script wasn't even trying to dig deep enough into answers of mental illness. It more or less just presents it.
Yeah.
And I think I felt like I needed something a little bit more there when it came to that theme. I wanted a little bit more explanation. Resolution. But I at the same time, do we have any when it comes to mental illness is what I walked away thinking. And maybe they were just presenting it. I don't know. But it just left me little bad taste. Like I just didn't have a complete meal.
Yeah, that's fair, man. And like I said, there was that one plot, calling the movie Horse Girl and then not firmly developing that plot, I think left a little on the table that should have been taken.
Yeah, I really did like Alison Brie, though. She's fantastic.
Yeah, she is. I mean, this movie is completely her. It's almost like a one-man show in a way.
You got a movie poster quote for me?
I do. Horse Girl blends science fiction and mental illness in a way that questions reality.
More or less a paragraph.
That's a sentence, man.
Okay, but it's a long one.
It's like 10 words, dude.
Yeah, all right. Well, I was going with she does not turn into a horse. Just so that people know, because people are confused with these Marvel movies,
well,
right?
Yeah, we got
Ant-Man, he turns into an ant.
Squirrel Girl. That's
Iron Man. He's got this iron suit.
Mm-hmm. What else you got? Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. He's more or less a Spider-Man. He really is.
He is. Batman.
It's
not Marvel,
more or less,
but yeah,
but it's a bat.
Spot on.
So I want to make sure people realize that she's not going to turn into a horse or put on a suit that makes her gallop out of nowhere. All of a sudden she's not eating hay. It's just a title. So
she does like sugar.
How many Jaws, Matt K?
I liked it, man. I'm giving it 3. 3 Jaws.
2.5 Jaws. Slightly below you, but I would recommend checking it out. It was funny. I mentioned it to someone. They said, should I watch it? And I said, well, I liked it, and I think it's a quality movie. But judging it from the person who asked me, I thought, I wouldn't recommend it necessarily,
To you.
Right.
This is going to be way over your head.
It's not necessarily that be over their head. I just don't think they would be entertained the way.
I get it. I'm just giving you crap, dude.
Not everybody looks at movie as art in that way. A lot of people just want to be entertained, and this was that kind of person. I thought
a lot of people want her to turn into a horse girl.
Yeah. So I thought I don't want to bother them watching Horse Girl. But for our listeners out there who are big movie fans, it's a slight recommend from me.
Yeah, I'd say go ahead and see this one. It's on Netflix. You got nothing to lose, and it's a great performance.
There you go. Not necessarily a secret love affair going on in
No, not so much, no.
But
unless you count her relationship with the horse.
Right. But due to the fact that we have Madeleine Olnek, who is the writer and director of Wild Nights with Emily and Secret Love Affair, big theme in that movie. That is our top 5 this week, Matt. We like to throw it to our guests and let them get started. And I pose this question to you, Madeleine. Was this a difficult list for you to come up with, or rather easy to narrow it down to your top 5?
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because I decided to think of it in a different way, because
I'm worried. Madeleine, you have me worried.
Well, Secret Love Affairs, I mean, that's the history of gay film.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that was immediately focused my brain on a certain kind of lineage of the way films have told these stories. Okay. Well, number 5, I'm also grouping with number 4. Number 5 is Chicago, the musical. So I want to explain. I've been thinking lately about Harvey Weinstein. The trial is going on here. Like today, they asked to reread some witness testimony, which is frankly a bad sign. I wanted to include this on this list because there's a lot of talk about, all the great movies that Harvey Weinstein has made. But I'd like to talk about some of the movies I think he's ruined.
Yeah.
In terms of, we talk about the lives he's ruined. Let's talk a little bit about some of the narratives that he's ruined. In the movie Chicago, in the musical, famously, there was this character named Mama, who was a prison warden.
Played by Queen Latifah. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the musical, there's a whole number where she hits on all these different women inmates. Mm-hmm. That's what happens in the musical. In the movie, they changed it so that she's hitting on all these men who are in the audience of this theater.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The screenplay was by Bill Condon, Gods and Monsters. Rob Marshall was the director, and it was produced by Miramax. However, there's one moment, and to me, it felt everything to me in the world like this was something that two actresses came up with. Catherine Zeta-Jones and Queen Latifah have this moment where the scene starts. They're together, I think it's Queen Latifah's character's office, and they're all rumpled, like their clothes are all rumpled. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh my God, they just had sex.
Okay. There's a suggestive moment, yeah.
To save it. Yeah, so that was the secret thing. So these picks I'm talking about are things that were so secret that mostly the audience didn't even know it.
So that swings it to me at number 5. I have Terms of Endearment, which is more on the affair side, I guess. Both affairs, the husband and wife, it's Jeff Daniels and Deborah Winger, both wind up having affairs. And John Lithgow is the secret partner of Deborah Winger. And it's actually a really nice performance from John Lithgow. One of his more toned down entries, because he's usually so manic. But I really liked him as sort of a more toned down. Deborah Winger, of course, powerhouse in this. Both affairs come to light by the end of the movie, but it's also about the reconciliation and the love because obviously Deborah Winger gets ill during the movie. And I guess it's sort of about the consequences and reconciliation of difficult moments in a marriage. It's a fascinating movie that we reviewed was it last year?
Yeah, Jack Nicholson also in that. That's right.
Movie, right. Yeah, it's a good one. What do you got there?
It's a good pick right there. My number 5 is a film that came out in 2007. I revisited just recently. Really holds up well. It was a great revisit. I'm speaking of the James McAvoy, Keira Knightley film, Atonement. It also features a young Saoirse Ronan in the movie as well. And the affair, have you seen this one, Madeleine?
I've heard that people really like it.
Yeah. So the affair here is James McAvoy plays the son of a housekeeper for a wealthy family, and the wealthy family being that of Keira Knightley's parents. But he's about the same age as Keira Knightley, and those two start sort of more or less flirting. Might not know it, but they do, kind of thing. And he decides to write a letter expressing his feelings towards Keira Knightley's character. But while doing so, he actually writes this very kind of like crude letter, very suggestive. And then he does it more or less for just to humor himself, and he puts it off to the side. However, when he writes his right letter, he accidentally grabs that crude, suggestive letter that he wrote, and he puts that one by accident in the envelope, hands it to her sister, who is played by Saoirse Ronan, and asks her to give it to her. And this spirals everything out of control because moments later, Saoirse Ronan, who was young at the time, maybe 8 years old, walks in on James McAvoy and Keira Knightley's characters having a moment, and she completely misreads the situation and actually accuses, this turns into a whole thing of actually later on accusing James McAvoy's character of doing something that he didn't necessarily do. He goes to prison, World War II breaks out. It's epic storytelling.
Wow.
But at the heart of it, and at the very beginning of it, is this affair that is taking place between, the housekeeper's son and the wealthy family's daughter. So great one. I highly encourage, if you haven't seen Atonement, to do check it out.
Nice.
That was my number 5. Now Madeleine already gave a tease on her number 4. I guess it's tied in.
I'm sorry. I meant to really group them together, to be honest.
That's all right.
But so this is another movie where the romance has to stay secret thanks to Harvey Weinstein ruining it. Now, this is Frida. 2002 it came out. I remember how excited everyone I knew was to hear that a movie was coming out about Frida Kahlo because she was famously bisexual, possibly a lesbian, and there was nothing, on screen at that point. Like in movies, we couldn't go to movies and see ourselves. And then it was like, oh, they don't have anything in the movie, or other people were like, oh, she just dances a tango with a woman. I was like, are you kidding? That's it. And I actually at that time refused to see the movie. That's how we expressed ourselves those days. And then I read this article, Selma Hayek. So this Frida was directed by Julie Taymor. And Selma Hayek wrote this article that was in the New York Times that was called Harvey Weinstein is My Monster Too. And it was all about what happened on the set of Frida and how there was supposed to be the scene where she slept with another woman. But meanwhile, in real life, Harvey Weinstein was trying to force Selma Hayek to have sex with a woman in front of him.
Jeez, but he wouldn't put that into the story, though.
No,
yeah.
it was supposed to be in the story.
Right, of course.
And there was supposed to be a shoot of it, but the day the shoot came, he came to set, and she was so freaked out because he had been trying to rape her, like, through the whole process, and that she couldn't do the scene. I'm just bringing this up because that would have been a great scene.
Well, it's important to the historical figure as well. It's part of her personality. Yeah,
totally. No, but I mean, it would have been a great scene in the movie. And everyone's always like, oh, Harvey Weinstein, it's so sad because he was such a great producer. He just did this other thing. But it's like, no, he was doing things that were ruining these movies. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting.
But I do want to say, Madeleine, I don't want to discourage listeners from checking out Frida if they haven't. It is quite a good film still.
No, it is. It is. And it's really, it's Julie Taymor and, the performances are great, but I'm just saying it's worth
re-examining.
Including this thing. Yeah. What was interesting to me about that moment in Chicago that Catherine Zeta-Jones and Queen Latifah pulled off, like it wasn't in lines, there wasn't any exposition. It was the kind of thing that unless you were keyed in, you would miss it. One of the first periodicals that used to write about films for the gay community was called Vice Versa, and it was written in 1947 by this woman who took the moniker Lisa Ben, and there wasn't any gay content in movies at that point. So she would just pretend that there was.
Oh, wow.
Well, she'd be like, oh, well, so-and-so was quite chummy with the other guy, and that she had to, type out the copy of the magazine on carbon paper. She had to retype everyone by hand because she did it at her day job.
Oh, it must have been scandalous at the time.
Oh, yes, totally scandalous. But that idea of looking and seeing the sort of that content like that, going along with our theme of secret romances, secret love affairs, that's how often actors would go and put content that was gay in movies where they had taken it out of the script.
That's interesting.
It is.
I just think it's very interesting. I mean, it's shocking, 2002, that's so recently,
Yeah, we think we're so liberated now, but it's not that long ago.
Yeah, right. All right. That swings it back over to me. And at number 4, this is where, Ryan, Karate Kid, the next Karate Kid. We're talking Karate Kid 4 is not my pick.
Thank the Lord.
But what that movie did...
Oh, I know where you're going now.
Was give us one Hilary Swank who would go on to create Boys Don't Cry. Won the Oscar, if I'm not mistaken, right?
She did, yeah.
She won the Oscar.
Yeah, she won the Oscar, yeah.
It's a tremendous performance, a very brave performance, certainly risky to her career at the time in 1999, but it definitely opened a lot of doors to talk about, trans relationships. Her performance, oh my God, it's still harrowing to this day.
Iconic. I mean, it changed the world. That movie changed the world. And Kimberly Pierce is a wonderful director. I know her. I feel like when a movie claims the cultural zeitgeist, it's because sometimes people learn something.
Yeah.
And I felt like what they learned from Boys Don't Cry, I feel like when people would see women who were masculine acting or people who were trans, they always assumed that those women hated men,
right,
or those trans people hated men. What they never understood was actually those people are the objects of hate. They're at the receiving end of hatred. They're not causing the hatred. The hatred is being aimed at them. You know, I said they didn't understand the idea of a trans person or someone presenting as butch being vulnerable.
Right. It certainly, it really doesn't sort of shy away from the malice that the character receives. It's brutal and harrowing, and, you know. Some
very rough scenes in the movie, for sure.
Yeah. But it's
and it was based on
important.
a true story.
Yeah,
you guys know about that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, highly recommend that one. Great pick, Matt.
Thanks.
My number 4, 2006, two heavyweight actresses here. Cate Blanchett and Judi Dench starred in a movie called Notes on a Scandal.
Mm-hmm. I somehow I knew this one would come up.
And the secret affair taking place here is actually Cate Blanchett's character, who is a teacher, and she's having an affair. She's married, and she's having an affair with a high school student. The older teacher on staff, played by Judi Dench, actually sees these two having an encounter. But because actually Judi Dench's character has an infatuation also with Cate Blanchett's character, she doesn't want to report it to authorities. Instead, she wants to keep it as, I'll keep this secret kind of deal. So that way she can remain friends, but there's also this underlining relationship. At least there's a hint towards, maybe something even romantic that she likes about Cate Blanchett's character as well. It's there. And eventually, of course, things come out and they're suspended, and it's a wild story.
Isn't it sort of there's a blackmail element to it as well?
To a degree, right? Because she has the secret and says she won't tell the authorities,
right?
As long as these two sort of stay friends, and it's because Judi Dench's character is so needy and wants to have companionship. Excellent performances here by both actresses. Love this one. If you haven't seen it, Notes on a Scandal.
Nice pick, Ryan.
Oh yeah, I'm putting that on my list right now.
You actually get a physical confrontation, shoving and punching between Cate Blanchett and Judi Dench at one point. If that doesn't sell you on the movie, you got to see it. So,
just Cate Blanchett and Judi Dench put together. That's incredible.
That's a good one.
Great.
My number 4. We're into our 3s. What do you got sitting there, Madeleine?
Mulholland Drive. It was in 2001. It actually has 2 secret affairs between 4 characters. Well, it's famously, the characters play 2 different people,
right?
The 2 main characters. Although the first time I saw it, I didn't realize Naomi Watts played both of those characters that she played. She was so good. It was unreal.
I'm right with you.
Laura Herring plays this sort of movie star character named Camilla Rhodes, and Naomi Watts plays this character named Diane Selwyn. Camilla is having this affair with Diane, and Diane is sort of like, you could tell Camilla just gets Diane parts on sets, like to be an extra or whatever, because she's Camilla's girlfriend. And at a certain point, Camilla decides she's going to dump Diane for the director because she's going to marry the director and he's important, and she's going to move up the ranks that way.
Yeah.
There's this really painful scene where the director's announcing their engagement, and they've gone out of their way to bring Diane to this party. I know as I'm telling the story, you're trying to remember where in Mulholland Drive you saw it, because I know there's a lot of layers to it, but it's like they go and they pick her up and they bring her to this party, and it's so painful, and it resonates so much. So of course then Diane Selwyn, like anyone would, takes out a contract on Camilla Rhodes' life.
Like you do.
But it's like you do. That performance that Naomi Watts gives, the desperation, it's just so incredible. And Naomi Watts and Laura Herring have this scene where they're in bed together. Laura Herring, in the first part of the movie, is playing this character named Rita, who has amnesia because she's hit her head. they end up in bed together, and Betty says to Rita, have you ever done this before? Which is a common line, like people having gay sex where they all want to pretend they're maybe, like, I've never done this before. I think, like that's a level of, like, people freak out psychologically. But she says, have you ever done this before? And Rita says, I don't know, like, because she has amnesia.
It's a great one.
Absolute classic.
That movie's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
It is.
My number 3, speaking of Hilary Swank, she would go on to work with Clint Eastwood, who would go on to work with the great Meryl Streep in The Bridges of Madison County.
Matt, wow. A romantic one here.
I don't know why, Ryan, but this one just hit me right
softy
in the box of Kleenex, man, and just sit on my couch with a pint of ice cream and cry one out. It's a movie that gives me the feels. It's just two tremendous actors working at the top of their game in a movie it's about an affair, but at the same time feels so innocent and right. Yes, she's cheating. Her husband is away with the kids on vacation or something, and she's alone. She meets this dashing photographer or whatever, and it just clicks, right? And it never at any point feels sordid or like she's doing something wrong, or either one of them are doing anything wrong. It just felt right, and I don't know, something about that movie that is sort of romantic. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a classic, timeless love story.
When you say it, Bridges of Madison County, I think romance.
Do you?
do.
I mean, I think I need a nap.
Funny.
But I loved it.
I thought about that in that moment where he stops the truck and he touches the crucifix that she had given him. Mm-hmm. And her husband's like, why is that guy stopping his truck? Like, and he just leaves that message. He wants to communicate to her
mm-hmm.
that secret language, you know, that these secret love affairs have, and how painful it is that that's all people can say. You know, that's all people can't talk more. It's over. They can't upend their lives. I was thinking about that scene the other day when you guys asked me to start thinking on this.
Yeah, that's a classic. One. Yep. My number 3 is a film all about affairs and relationships. You know, Matt, and I think the listeners know, I'm not at all a big fan of Julia Roberts, but she has...
You've mentioned that.
One great film here when it comes to relationships and affairs. Came out in 2004. Julia Roberts, along with Jude Law, Natalie Portman, and Clive Owen, gave us Closer. Have you seen this one, Madeleine?
I haven't, but that's why I want to see it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you're picking it and you're not a fan of hers, so that makes me want to see the movie.
It's actually based on a stage play, so it's got that going too, since you come from the world of theater. It's also called Closer. And like I say, the whole thing's based on affairs and the relationships between these 4 characters. And basically, in a nutshell, Jude Law meets Natalie Portman's character crossing the street in London, hits her head. They sort of just meet and start up a relationship. He then writes a book and becomes an author, and Julia Roberts plays a photographer that comes to take his photos for the book jacket. Right away, he has something, a little connection with her. Mm-hmm. And he constantly is obsessed with her, even though he's now in this relationship with Natalie Portman's character. Eventually, an affair takes place. But at this point, she's already in a relationship with the Clive Owen character. The two, Jude Law and Julia Roberts, go ahead, for a year's time at least, having, affair. And once everybody finally knows, there's that jealousy that everybody would feel, that so much so that Clive Owen, all he wants to do now at this point is actually, have a relationship with Natalie Portman's character to get back at
revenge.
Jude Law in a way, and there's more to it. There's layers to it. Oh man, it's sort of a nasty movie in a way, but I think a very truthful movie as far as feelings that we all have when you feel in a relationship and you feel, there's
like you've been done wrong, or, even, jealousy or possession and all that goes along with relationship, and well acted as well.
Right.
So nice pick, right?
Yep. Into our 2s we go, Madeleine.
And I want to say, my father says that all of Julia Roberts' attractiveness is in her nose.
Really? Well, I get it. She's got sort of that upturned button pixie nose. She was Tinkerbell after all.
I just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
That's all.
What do you got sitting at 2, Madeleine?
Well, I couldn't not pick the amazing film, The Foxy Merkins.
Of course not.
I don't know this one.
It's by me.
Oh.
I directed it.
Oh, okay.
It was at Sundance. It was the movie that convinced Molly Shannon to work with me on a big screen, and it was nominated for Independent Spirit Award. There's a character called the Kinky Republican Woman. It's played by Susan Ziegler, who's also in Wild Nights with Emily. She plays Susan Dickinson. She plays Emily's beloved, and so she rents this motel room where she picks up lesbian hookers and then stages weird scenarios with the police to freak them out. So it's a really great performance, I have to say. She's a great actress. So I had to pick that one.
Hey, absolutely.
You can see it. It's streaming on Prime, or, you can see it. So it was at Sundance. It also had its international premiere at the Moscow International Film Festival, which, if you can imagine how homophobic, Russia has all that problems with hate crimes because they're, so it was a big deal that it got in there.
Awesome.
So it's worth a watch, I think.
I'll have to check it out for sure. I got to catch up with that one.
Yeah.
Back over to me. And Ryan and Madeleine, if I had told you at the outset here that a Jennifer Aniston movie would be at number 2 on my list, you probably would have said Get Out. Not known as a tremendous actress, but I think this may be her best performance. She plays alongside John C. Reilly, coming up again, and Jake Gyllenhaal.
Are you going with The Good Girl?
The Good Girl. Yeah. This movie, I think, demands a re-examination because it's actually damn near perfect.
Wow, I haven't seen it in a long time, so I'm going to have to take your word for it here.
I mean, I actually really like Jennifer Aniston. I think she's tremendous in a lot of her comedic roles. She's got great timing. She's just a good actress. I like her a lot. But this one, she sort of goes above and beyond. It's weird, like we haven't seen this from her since. But something happened. The stars aligned. She got the right script. She's playing with the right actors alongside her. And she gives an Oscar caliber performance that went completely under radars.
Where's the affair again in this one?
Okay, so she.
I never saw this movie. I see that it's written by Mike White. How exciting!
Yeah. So she basically is playing a cashier at a Walmart in a like podunk nowheresville town. She's married to John C. Reilly, who she loves, but her life is very small. She's never been outside this town. She had big dreams and nothing ever happened. This new cashier gets hired at the Walmart, and it's Jake Gyllenhaal. And he's, barely outside of his teens. I think he plays a young man in his 20s, just getting past that greasy teenager phase of his life. And they have this click, and they start an affair together. And he's kind of lovesick and writing poetry to her and sort of being a jackass. But at the same time, he's really romantic, and they have this connection. But it's about her sort of coming to terms with which life is she going to choose. Is she going to throw it all away for this young guy, or is she going to stay with her husband, who's a good man? He's just a little dim. So it's a great movie. I think it's very honest.
I saw it and I remember liking it. I'll have to revisit that one.
I think it's worth a revisit.
My number 2 pick is actually a Best Picture winner. 1996. This is a heavyweight when it comes to secret love affairs. I'm speaking of The English Patient.
Oh, nice.
And this one stars Ralph Fiennes, Kristen Scott Thomas. Those are the two that have the affair. Kristen Scott Thomas is actually in the movie married to Colin Firth. And Ralph Fiennes' character is actually, a single guy who's out mapping the Sahara Desert, meets this married couple. They have this airplane, and they're going in the desert to look for this particular cave. And once he meets Kristen Scott Thomas, everything clicks, and they start this affair together. And it's one of those, just heartbreaking moments that you feel like you really want these two characters to be together, but because of the circumstances that they're in, that this just can't happen. Again, in an epic film like this, you got to have a war breakout, So you get the war breakout. You got certain situations where, he can't do his mapping anymore. There's a moment in there with a plane crash that everybody knows. If you haven't seen the movie, you probably even know it from the trailers and the commercials. But there's this great moment in there where Ralph Fiennes actually buys this thimble for Kristen Scott Thomas. And when that comes back up in the movie and you see the love, very much like you alluded to the moment, Madeleine, in Bridges of Madison County, where these two characters have a moment and the way they can communicate in this code.
Yeah.
And here they have this in The English Patient. It's awesome. It's heartbreaking. It always gets me, a little tear in the eye when I watch it. And I've seen it several times, and it's just gorgeous to look at cinematography wise, and the music and the acting. It's just top notch all the way around, this movie.
Is this your ice cream straight out of the carton on the couch kind of movie, Bri?
I don't eat ice cream. I'm lactose intolerant.
You can get it made out of other kinds of things now.
Yeah. Get some gelato, for God's sake.
I don't need all that good stuff. All right, here we are. It's our number one picks. Madeleine, your number one secret love affair in film.
The movie Carol, 2015, starring Kate Blanchett and Rooney Mara.
It's a beauty. That's a beauty.
It is such a good movie. I wanted to make a page on the internet which was just like faces of people walking out of the Paris theater after having seen Carol. Like, everybody was walking out in a daze. Like, people were walking out like they were on acid or something. I'm telling you, I know that sounds weird, but like in New York City, there's this theater. It's the Paris Theater. So I think it closed recently just now, but it had opened the day before Thanksgiving, and everyone was going to that, and it was just such a lush entertainment, and it was so beautiful. And Kate Blanchett, she's so good. She's so good. And of course, this is another Christine Vachon produced movie. It's amazing. I would just like to draw people's attention to this moment. So it's the story for people who don't know it is. Carol is going through a divorce. I'm going to get this all wrong, but it's set in the
50s.
50s, yeah. Set in the 50s, and Rooney Mara plays this person who works at a department store. Kate Blanchett's character loses her glove, but it's really just a pretext to come back and see her again. They end up going on this road trip, and then they end up in a hotel room. And imagine this time, like how much terror there is around these kinds of relationships. So they're in this room, and then Kate Blanchett makes a pass at Rooney Mara's character by opening the robe she's wearing and pressing herself again. Like Rooney Mara is sitting in this chair, and they're looking in this mirror or something, and Kate Blanchett is taking the shower, and she has a bathrobe on, and she opens her robe, and I was like, wow, that's the kind of pass you can't recover from.
Sure. Bold
You
move.
can't make a pass. Yeah, you can't say, oh, that wasn't, I didn't mean that. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe you could. Maybe that's why she did that. But I was like, can't take steps back from past.
Yeah, that's a brilliant film.
It really is. And the just layers that Kate Blanchett brings to that performance.
She's a powerhouse. There's no doubt about it. All right. So at number one, this is where, and to be honest, I don't know how well this film has aged, but I'm a big fan of it. It's something that, one of the movies that got me interested in film in the first place, and I'll just go ahead and say it is American Beauty. And it's all about secret relationships. It's all about forbidden relationships. Everyone in the movie, I think every single character has a relationship that is at least in part secret, or has to be secret for some reason or another. And if they don't, then they have the desire for a relationship that would have to be secret, and their secret desires. And ultimately, it tears some people apart in the movie. I don't know. Again, I think some of the people that made the film maybe have cast a shadow on it, but at least at the time, I think it was a really good examination of small town life and how we just sort of settle into the routine of mediocrity and need to aspire for more in order to be fulfilled. It was a great movie, man. One of my favorites of all time.
It was a great movie. I loved that movie. It was such a good movie. It was.
Thanks, Madeleine.
I mean, it really was. That movie affected me deeply.
Same.
And I don't know if you've ever seen Storytelling by Todd Solondz.
No, I've seen a lot of his movies, but not that one.
Well, he makes fun of American Beauty.
I mean, there's so many parodies. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a bag floating in the sky. But it's so beautiful, that plastic bag.
Oh, it is.
That movie, that beautiful movie got under his skin, you know. I think he knew on some level he could never make a movie like that. Like, his project is different, you know, his view, his world view, and how he
to say the least.
World.
Yeah.
But American Beauty, I think, is it's an amazing movie. And it also, I remember my sister called me after she saw the movie. What year was that, American Beauty?
1999.
99, yeah. The world was just about to change.
She called me and she was like, Madeleine, in that movie, a man makes a pass at another man, and then the man rebuffs him and he shoots him.
Right.
When people kill gay people, is it because they have secret gay? So it was it was also educational on that level because people didn't understand that, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
That blew her away, and she was a college-educated person. I loved that idea in it of there's that moment in your life where you're living the most golden, pure life. Like, it's usually very simple. Like, he talks about when he was flipping burgers, and we all have to aspire to get back to that moment. Like, I think of it for myself as it was when I was teaching preschool and I was writing plays, because I got so many plays put on. I mean, it helped that I wasn't famous at all because I didn't have to there was no time taken up by anything related to being successful.
Yeah.
but
we'll get back there, Madeleine. Come on. Get back to teaching and writing some plays.
That idea was really, really beautiful. And so many things in the movie were super. I just loved that movie so much.
There you go.
Well, thanks.
Leaves us with my number one. And Madeleine, you talked about it being a subject that does come up a lot in the gay community as far as these stories and sort of secret love affairs. And Matt, you were just talking about forbidden love. And I went with the heavy hitter, and I think it's a very obvious one. But boy, we'd be... I hope it's what I think you're going to say. I think we would be wrong if we didn't mention it. In 2005, the Ang Lee masterpiece, Heath Ledger, Jake Gyllenhaal, Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's obviously on my list for honorables, but I thought you'd have it.
Yeah, and I am not all that, some type of conservative bubble. I'm pretty going to see all these movies, very open. And I remember, even for me, it was at the time, 2005, I remember it was the first time I had seen a big production movie that, you had seen gay affairs maybe appear in screen and in stories, but to have it where it was such a tender love story laced in there, it then really got to the point where you really realized it on a whole nother level of, get away from the point of that these are two guys. It's two people, two humans that love each other, and shouldn't they have the right to be next to each other and have that love and be able to express that love? And the way they were able to tell that story, I think it sunk into a lot of people that went and saw it. It changed,
it's a watershed.
Yeah.
It's a watershed.
And we still that year at the Oscars they awarded Crash. So we were still at a time where people weren't willing to fully accept Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah. Who watches that movie?
Nobody.
That movie? No one watches Crash. That's a bad movie. Brokeback Mountain made people really see the collateral damage of what happens when gay people can't come out. Mm-hmm. We saw the horrible suffering of the two men being kept from each other, but we also saw oh my God, when people ministers and preachers say people shouldn't be gay, that means these gay men should be married to women. What about those women they're married to? Mm-hmm. What about their lives?
Yeah, the ripple effect that all that has, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that had occurred to people before that movie.
I agree. And I do want to say that we talk about Heath Ledger all the time. Everybody does, is what a great job he did in The Joker. I think pound for pound, this is actually his best performance to date as Enos Del Mar in the film. I think he's outstanding in Brokeback Mountain.
And let's not forget Anne Hathaway.
Mm-hmm.
They're waiting for a mating call.
Yep.
It was I mean, she was really good in that scene where where she's talking while we're seeing
what we think envisioned. Right.
Yeah. Being murdered, and she's like, and we know she's intentionally lying.
Well, you know what's interesting on that, Madeleine, I want to interrupt you there, is that, I pull these facts for Anne Hathaway month, and one of them that I was going to do on the podcast was the fact that she did that scene 2 times. Ang Lee wanted to do that scene 2 times. One where she played the character knowing that she was lying, and one where she did the phone conversation not knowing that she was lying, like the story she was telling was true. And she said when she went and saw it, he had interchanged the edit so well, so that way...
Oh, it's like from both takes?
Yeah, from both takes.
He blended it. And so that way it was supposed to give the viewer, like, yeah, she's lying, but there could be some viewers that were thinking she was telling the truth. It's an interesting take. Interesting.
Right, or she was lying, but we could also understand she was lying to herself.
Right, yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah, so that's what made it. It did have that quality. All the movies you guys listed are ones I either loved or
yours
now
too,
really want to see.
If we missed your favorite love affair in film, secret love affair, Jawheads, and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet, or you can always email us, feedback@cinemajaw.com. So what we're going to do is take a break. When we come back, we have a Jaw bite-sized review of The Call of the Wild, plus Matt versus Madeleine and Harrison Ford movie trivia. Stick with us.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Hey Jawheads, this week, to wrap up our Anne Hathaway month here on Cinemajaw, we take a look at a pivotal character moment as she acted alongside the great Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada.
I see a great deal of myself in you. You can see beyond what people want and what they need, and you can choose for yourself. I don't think I'm like that. I couldn't do what you did to Nigel Miranda. I couldn't do something like that. But you already did. To Emily. That's not what No, that was different. I didn't have a choice. Oh, no, you chose. You chose to get ahead. You want this life? Those choices are necessary. But what if this isn't what I want? I mean, what if I don't want to live the way you live? Oh, don't be ridiculous, Andrea. Everybody wants this. Everybody wants to be us.
The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy.
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with Madeleine Olnek, writer and director of Wild Nights with Emily. Madeleine, now with the success of Wild Nights with Emily, what can we expect next?
You know, I have a bunch of things I'm working on, and I'd like to shorten my turnaround time. I'd like it to be a shorter time.
Shorter than how many years did Wild Nights with Emily take?
Well,
with the research and everything.
Years, but there were projects overlapping.
Sure.
I mean, I done the play version in 1999, if you can imagine, and then it was like 7 years getting that film made. But I got the Foxy Merkinson premiered in 2013. And Codependent Lesbian Space Alien Seek Fame, which was my first feature film, was 2011. And then I had a bunch of shorts on the festival circuit before that.
So anything coming up you can tell us about?
I can't, even though I'm very excited to hear about what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But I wish I could tell you.
Well, that's all right. You know what? We get that answer a lot, and you know what? When the time comes, please do let us know.
Yes, for sure. But we do want to encourage our listeners to rent Wild Nights with Emily. It's out on digital platforms everywhere you rent movies. So just type it in to the Roku or the Apple TV or whatever you're using, and you will see it there to rent.
Indeed, you will.
Matt, Harrison Ford is used to working with Wookiees. He acts alongside a shepherd dog in the latest family adventure, The Call of the Wild. This is adapted from the book by Jack London, which was published back in, get this, 1903. Have you read the book?
You know, I think I have, but I've forgotten. It's a schoolhouse book.
Right. The central character here is Buck, a dog who was snatched away from his home and brought to Yukon, Canada during the 1890s gold rush. Buck has various owners, some good, most bad. The two epic parts of the story, racing an avalanche and rescuing someone from a frozen lake, take place while Buck is part of a sled team delivering mail. Eventually, he finds his way to John Thornton, played by Harrison Ford, an old-timer reflecting on his life. I have to say this, Matt. The CGI dog here was rough. It did not always work. It didn't look good on screen. This is a movie for kids, but I found the writing, acting, and story so on the nose. I think kids are smarter than this and deserve better. The commercial I saw made it feel like this was going to be a sprawling story, and I found it lacking there as well. I was disappointed with The Call of the Wild.
That's disappointing. I have two comments here. I have not seen the film yet, but first of all, why CGI dog? Why? I mean, just get a dog.
No,
get a dog.
But here's the thing. So I have not read the book, so I'm not aware of this.
You can use CGI for the stunts and stuff.
Right. But so Buck knows and has feelings.
He's got an inner monologue
of what's going on.
Sure, but we've seen that before in
but this is really heavy. So for instance, I'm talking like if a drunk Harrison Ford's character is reminiscing about his son, all of a sudden Buck goes and gets a picture of his son and puts it on the table in front of him. And
you can train a dog to do that.
Yeah, but it's done and it's a constant. There's a moment where there's a confrontation between.
So he's anthropomorphic.
Yeah, who's the two lead dogs on the sled, and there's this basically a fight scene between two dogs that's just done. It has too many characteristics.
Are you telling me they had to do CGI?
I don't know. I think it probably would have been better, but it would have been a completely different movie. Better, but completely different. What they were going for here was very heavy on the CGI, the facial expressions, the ears. It's tons of that.
Okay. My other comment is this. Harrison Ford has famously said, good, I'm glad I'm done with Star Wars. He was too serious of an actor to even when he went back to do the sequels, kind of admit that the character Han Solo is one of his most beloved characters. And here he goes and does a dog movie in the Yukon. I mean, what the hell?
Well, I think he probably saw this as a little bit meatier of a role that on paper than it translated to on screen.
Sure.
But I'll say this, truth be told, I got the invite to go to the press screening and I wasn't going to go. Just because I saw the subject, I thought, we're probably not going to review that on Cinemajaw. I won't do it. Then I saw an ad for it. I saw him sort of racing this avalanche, and it looked very sprawling.
So the trailer worked.
I literally thought, you know what? I'm going to go back. There's still time to go to the press screening. I'm going to go. I think this looks pretty good. And I was disappointed. It was like false advertising. It was not that sprawling epic that I was hoping for. So
bummer. How many Jaws?
1.5 Jaws for The Call of the Wild. I do have a movie poster quote for you, Matt.
Okay, lay it on me.
Picture it right on the movie poster. Not all that wild. Yeah. There you go. In honor of The Call of the Wild, we are playing Harrison Ford castmate trivia.
All right, Jawheads, it's time once again for Cinema Trivia, where one lucky contestant gets to take on Matt K in the hot seat. Starring your host, Rye the Movie Guy!
So these are people that were in the cast with Harrison Ford because he's such a big name that you know all the Harrison Ford movies, but we're looking for cast members that were in those films.
He's worked with everyone.
He has. Madeleine, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first or let Matt K go first. There are steals, and if you get hung up on any questions, you get one lifeline for Pick Me Up, Pat. And I'll say this, Madeleine, they start off easy.
Okay, first round then. I'll do first round.
All right. Cool.
That's the easiest round?
Yes.
Or no, all of them start. Okay. Yeah,
all right.
First round.
First question is over to Madeleine. Madeleine, in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, we meet Indiana's father. Who played Indy's father? He was a James Bond actor.
Sean Connery.
1-0, Madeleine. Question 2 over to Matt. In Blade Runner 2049, Harrison Ford was joined by this Drive actor who played Agent K.
Ryan Gosling.
1-1. Question 3 back over to Madeleine. Madeleine, in 1997, Harrison Ford starred in The Devil's Own with this recently crowned Oscar winner. Name him.
What was that last word you said? Oh, name him?
Name him. Name who it is. Recently crowned Oscar winner.
Sean Penn. No, it's not Sean Penn. It's wrong. That was wrong. 1997, The Devil's Own. I have not seen that movie. Anthony Hopkins.
That is incorrect, Matt. You got a chance for us.
I have no idea. I think the Sean Penn guess was probably a good one. I'll take the Sean Penn guess.
Incorrect also. We were looking for Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt, Harrison Ford. Question 4 over to Matt K. Matt, What Lies Beneath came out in the year 2000. Who played Harrison Ford's wife in the film?
Michelle Pfeiffer.
That is correct. 2-1, Matt K. Question 5 back over to Madeleine. Madeleine, in 2011, Harrison Ford starred in the movie Aliens and Cowboys. He starred in the movie with Olivia Wilde and this actor who also has played a James Bond.
Roger Moore? No.
Incorrect. Matt, you got a chance for a steal here.
Another bad movie that he should never have done. That was Daniel Craig.
That's right. Yeah.
3-1, Matt. I don't like the sound of this one, Matt. We need the rest of these for you. Question 6 is over to Matt K. Matt, back in 1991, Harrison Ford starred in Regarding Henry.
Yes.
Which actress played his wife in the film?
Speaking of American Beauty, it was, oh my God, hang on, I'm forgetting her name. Annette Bening.
That is correct. Annette Bening. Trivia.
I love that movie, by the way.
Did you know this, though? J.J. Abrams wrote the screenplay for that movie.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, saw that in my research. I didn't know that either.
I love that movie. See? J.J., even back then, buddy.
4-1, Matt K. Madeleine, question 7 is over to you. In 2010, Harrison Ford starred in a movie called Morning Glory with Diane Keaton and this actress who plays a young television producer trying to get ratings up.
I guess now that I'm being asked all these questions, I realize that there was a long period of time in which I was absent from attending movie theaters.
You do have a lifeline. You do have a lifeline if you need it.
Okay, lifeline.
Pick Madeleine up, Pat. Who starred in Morning Glory with Harrison Ford?
This clue comes from my notebook.
Sounds like the Notebook actress. Not sure if you've seen the Notebook.
I haven't. You know, Harrison Ford didn't do a lot of gay movies. The Notebook. What was the Notebook about? If you can remind me, maybe I'll remember.
Oh, it's a good love story. It's got Ryan Gosling in it. and it's like an older couple looking back when they were younger. And the younger.
I don't think people should do that.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't see that movie.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Matt, do you got a guess on this one?
I think is it Keira Knightley, dude? I have no idea.
That is incorrect. Also, we're looking for Rachel McAdams.
I never saw it. Madeleine, I never saw The Notebook either.
All right, here it is.
Ryan raves about it almost weekly.
Last question of the game, over to Matt K. Matt, in 2002, Harrison Ford starred in the Catherine Bigelow-directed K-19, The Widowmaker. He played a captain on a submarine. Who starred alongside him as his executive officer?
Oh man, that was the Hunt for Red October wannabe movie. All right, pick me up, Pat.
Whoa, pick me up, Pat. Pat, who starred in K-19, The Widowmaker with Harrison Ford?
This clue has been taken, and only he can get it back.
Oh, Liam Neeson.
There it is. Wow. Matt does win this one, Madeleine. Can I get a virtual handshake here?
Yes, virtual handshake. Well done, Madeleine.
I have to say, I am not surprised.
Yeah. If it came down to a tie, we call it a jawbreaker here, Madeleine. The question would have been over to you. Better actor, Harrison Ford or Liam Neeson?
Well, at this point, Liam Neeson. But at another point, it wasn't true.
The real jawbreaker was this: age of Annette Bening closest to. Matt, do you got a guess on how old Annette Bening is?
Annette Bening. Well, let me think. Okay, so I would say she was in her 50s in the 90s, and so she's got to be in her mid-70s, I'm guessing. That might be old, but I'll say 73.
Wow, lock him in at 73. You get a guess also, Madeleine.
I think she's 62.
Okay.
Big difference here.
Yeah,
Matt says 73. Madeleine says 62. Give that one to Madeleine. Annette Bening, only 61, Matt.
Wow.
61 for Madeleine.
That was a good guess.
Yeah. Brings us to the end of a great jaw. And first and foremost, we got to thank Madeleine for coming on. This has been a pleasure talking to you, and congratulations again on the film.
Thank you. Wild Nights with Emily itself is a lighthearted and joyous movie. We've had grandparents come see it. We've had kids see it. It's homoerotic entertainment for the entire family.
There you go.
I love it. We also got to thank our producer Pat.
Yeah, it was a good time, as always, guys.
And Matt, we got to thank the sponsors.
Yeah, thanks to Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op, who help us get great sponsors like them.
Yes, if you would like to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast.
And while you're at it, click subscribe, one extra button, and it helps us out tremendously.
Until next week, I'm Ryan the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt K, and keep on jawing about the movies.